Welcome back to ATL Day Ones. I'm Tenitra. This is Jarvis, and we appreciate you guys for continuing to support us and continuing to download our podcast wherever you get your podcast. And again, when you download it, make sure you give us a 5-star review. We appreciate and really do accept the feedback. So apparently, there are others who accept our feedback and actually listen to some things that we try to share with them, as in the Atlanta Falcons, who made a slight move on their roster. They picked up D lineman Eddie Goldman, formerly of the Bears. So again, the Chicago to Atlanta train is still moving. And
Yes.
if you caught
The
our
Atlanta
Wednesday,
Bears is full effect.
full of it. If you caught our Wednesday episode, you already know that we were talking D line and whether or not the Falcons needed to shore it up. And I suspect, Jarvis, that before we get into our other conversation, that you would agree this is a good move, especially because, okay, he had sacks. Do I need to say anything else? I mean, he
Right. Yeah.
touched the quarterback.
He actually had him. Yeah.
There you go. So he right. We definitely agree that that's a good move. But I suspect, Jarvis, that there might still be more.
No doubt about it. Because when you think about like these are guys that are being brought in so you can have some numbers, right?
Yes.
Some guys who have experience. Because like I said, you have guys that just hasn't played that much in the league, you know, and Marlon Davidson and Taquan Graham. So you want to be able to have those veterans just in case those guys get a little stage fright. Not saying they're scared to play football, but they aren't able to perform like you maybe expected them to coming into the season. So, and then you got the other piece that, you know, once camps get started and once those cuts are made, that's another market that I'm sure Terry Fontenot is going to be well aware of and paying attention to, because, you know, these coaches, they have relationships upon relationships upon relationships where they are always talking to their buddies that may be coaching across the league, and I'm sure Terry Fontenot is still in contact with people down there in New Orleans, you know, and say, hey, what about this guy that you let go?
Yes.
Do you think that he can be a guy that I can, you know, have some interest in? So I think that this is a move that I'm not surprised by. Like we said, we talked about it, because you need a good mixture of veterans and rookies, because on the outside there are a lot of rookies. When I'm talking about outside edge rushers, specifically when you're talking about D'Angelo Malone, Arnold Ebiketie, and then, you know, you got Ogundeji who's out there, and then you got the one vet in Lorenzo Carter. So you want to continue to bring guys in, because you never know who's gonna hit. You have no clue. Now, Eddie Goldman has been in the league for 7 years. He sat out the COVID year. He came back last year. He was okay, you know, but he was a guy who's been with one team for 7 years. That means something. That has to account for something. So that means there's some consistency there, and that's what you're looking for when you're talking about the Atlanta Falcons go.
Yeah, and to add to that, we saw, and my mind went to Marlon Davidson and Taquan Graham, but also my mind went to the secondary and how important the likes of bringing in, for example, an Eric Harris. Those veterans were critical too. When, I mean, Isaiah Oliver was doing his thing, as an example, went down, and you needed those veterans to kind of come in. And then we saw, even across the O-line, that there were needs for veterans to at least, I'm going to say, pinch hit for
there you go.
a game here and a game there. So in addition, like you said, to shoring things up, because you still have young talent back there, you also have to look at the fact that we have some oft injured talent that may need a backup at some point throughout the season. Now, speaking of backups, there's a backup that we don't know which one is going to be the backup, because now there is a backlog in Carolina. But before we talk about that backlog, Jarvis is going to tell you about one of our great partners.
Boom, shakalaka. I got some good news, some great news for y'all. NBA Jam is back, baby. The Leader in Home Retro Arcade game is not only bringing the best game ever back, but they've made it bigger, even with wait for it, Shaq Edition machine. Now, for those who don't know, Shaq was the guy that on the original NBA Jam, that people were always trying to figure out, what's the code to get Shaq? How can I get Shaq? When can I get Shaq? How can I get Shaq? That was the dude that was just not achievable. You couldn't get him. You couldn't figure out a way to get him. So, but Arcade 1-Up has made it easy just for you. So this is one of the first sports games ever to feature really digitized NBA licensed teams. And you can pre-order it now at arcade1up.com. That's arcade, the number one, up.com for an estimated early September ship date. That is right around the corner. You'll have it right as football season gets started. So tired of watching football? Go ahead and play that NBA Jam Shaq Edition. And now, check this out, though. They're giving away an NBA Jam Shaq Edition to a Locked On listener. Listener and viewer. They're going to give it to you. All you got to do is you go to the console you can get this console for your man cave. Now go to arcade1up.com/locked-on. arcade1up.com/locked-on. You got until July the 8th. That's tomorrow. So go to arcade1up.com/locked-on. Don't miss out. Enter today. Who are you going to play with?
Yeah. Sounds good. Well, you know, one of my nephews is a gamer, so this is right up his alley.
Now, if you go and put that website in.
Yeah, right. But speaking of going up, apparently something is going on up I-85 that has made things, I'll say, a little interesting in the NFC South. So, of course, the Panthers gave Baker Mayfield a new zip code. So he will be in the Carolinas. He is coming down south. They agreed to trade, the Browns did agree to trade him to the Panthers for a 2024 conditional pick on Wednesday. And so he joins a Panthers team that already kind of has a lot of folks in the QB room, including Sam Darnold, as well as Matt Corral, who the Panthers selected in this year's draft in the 3rd round, right? So you look at the Panthers and you think, ooh, the Panthers now have some depth there. Well, Jarvis, all depth isn't good depth. Because 2 of those 3 flamethrowers are also the 2 guys who had the most interceptions since 2018. So that's a little bit of a challenge where I ask you, I'm going to use this term lightly, is Mayfield an upgrade or is this kind of a wash? Let's start there.
Ooh, that's a very good question. And I think that, well, let me just start here before I get to get answer that, right? So let's just put this thing in perspective. Baker Mayfield was a guy who took the Cleveland Browns to the playoffs.
Right.
And that hadn't happened since 2002. And he actually won. You know, he got to win. And that hadn't happened since 1994. So I think that his ability is a little elevated.
Yes.
And I'm not saying he's a bum, but I'm saying that if surrounded with a lot of talent, and he was surrounded around a lot of talent up in Cleveland. So, and I think that the reason whether or not he is a wash depends solely on the injury status or the health of Christian McCaffrey. That's all that matters. Like, it really doesn't matter who's back there up under center, to be honest with you, when it comes to Carolina, because this offense is centered around Christian McCaffrey. If he's healthy, sure. Throw whoever in there. You know, it doesn't matter. Like, if you are in a space where you're at quarterback at Carolina Panthers, all I care about is the health of Christian McCaffrey. They brought in some offensive linemen to shore that thing up. They got Ikem Ekwonu, you know, in the 1st round this year, and they signed a few veteran offensive linemen to kind of sew that thing up a little bit. You know, they've struggled up front for quite some time. Right. So whoever they have at quarterback, it doesn't matter. As long as Christian McCaffrey is healthy, they can be fine. They'll be fine.
Yeah. It'll be an interesting scenario and situation that they have up there, where now you're dealing with number 1 pick in Mayfield, a number 3 pick in Darnold, and 2 picks who literally, one, like you said, had that flash, if you will,
just a little bit,
and then it just kind of trailed off. And then the other who really, I don't know if he's had even enough success for you to even call it a flash in the league, but that's interesting to me as well, because so much attention has been paid to this battle for starting QB for the Falcons, and that's been the focal point this offseason, kind of training camp. What are we going to see there? What are we going to see in the preseason between Marcus Mariota and Desmond Ridder, and how they measure up? But after the Panthers moved to get Mayfield, I said, I don't know. I kind of like the position in the situation that the Falcons are in with their QB battle far more than what the Panthers are dealing with. And then something that you mentioned earlier, especially if they get the help that they need from Cordero Patterson, but also from a Tyler Algier or any one of those rookies that is in that running back room.
Yeah, and that's going to be the success of that's going to determine whether or not the Falcons are a competitive team this year, whether or
Yes.
not they're going to be able to run the football.
Yeah.
And because we all know Arthur Smith and what he wants to do and what he's tried, no matter how much he doesn't want to admit that you can't transfer things or transfer success from team to team. I think that there's always a game plan, though. There's always a foundation when you're talking about building a house. If you want to build a house, this red and black house down there, Mercedes-Benz, I know it's already, the structure is there, but when you're trying to build a team that can perform on week in and week out or at 1 o'clock on Sundays, you have to be able to run the football. That's just the only way it's going to work, given what Arthur Smith is trying to do. So, if Tyler Algier had messed around and rushes for 800 yards and averaging 4.5 or 4.7 yards a carry, Falcons are going to be cooking with grease. That's for sure.
Exactly. And, you talk about performing, and there is a guy just up the road from us who really performs at a high level on the court, but it's what he does off the court that makes us just smile here at ATL Day One. So we'll talk about it in For the Culture on the other side.